I'm very tired of all of the lies. I've been hearing things and seeing things on the blogs I'm just...
This conviction is the latest in a long line of prosecutions by this office to protect women and vulnerable minors from predators.
The scene begins with a sense of urgency as the whispers of a dramatic late-night raid at the Metropolitan Detention Center ripple. Through the headlines, Diddy Combs, once a titan of the music industry, now finds himself not in the glow of lights, but under the harsh fluorescent glare of a federal lockup. The prison walls, notorious for their grim reputation, have already taken their toll on the once vibrant mogul. But this latest twist, it's enough to make jaws drop. Federal agents storming into his cell, searching for incriminating evidence that could tip the scales of his already precarious legal battle.
Attorneys for disgraced Chicago musician R. Kelly have filed a petition to the U.S. Supreme Court to review his conviction for federal crimes.
The timing of the raid was no coincidence under the cover of darkness, when most prisoners were confined to their cells, and the facility was at its eeriest. Authorities swept into Diddy's small, dreary quarters. What they were looking for and what they found are now the subject of intense speculation. Reports suggest that their aid was triggered by a tip, possibly from within the prison itself. An informant who claimed Diddy was hiding something explosive, and we're not talking about contraband snacks or hidden luxury item. No, this was far more sinister. Word began to spread that during the raid, authorities uncovered what they're calling forbidden evidence. Allegedly, among the items seized were handwritten notes and documents that prosecutors are painting as a roadmap to obstruction. The papers reportedly included names of witnesses, insiders, and perhaps even former associates, accompanied by vague but chilling annotations that insiders have described as instructions. Were these notes an attempt to silence potential testimonies through bribes, coercion, or worse? That's the haunting questions whirling around this case, now legitimate.
Is fighting to overturn his conviction that sent him to prison for 30 years. His attorneys argue federal prosecutors in Brooklyn failed to prove Kelly's acts were part of a criminal enterprise.
Diddy's deaf team is having none of it. They've come out swinging, calling the search a blatant violation of their client's rights. According to his lead attorney, Mark Agnifilo, the entire operation reeks of overreach. What we're seeing here, his lawyer declared in an impassioned press statement, is nothing short of a desperate act by the government to demonize Mr. Combs. This search was not only illegal, but intended to prejudice public opinion against him. Agilo has vowed to fight the admissibility of the evidence in court, even as prosecutors argue that what was uncovered proves Diddy's ongoing threat to the justice system.
What they experienced at his hands, or the threats and harassment they faced in telling the truth about what happened to them. We hope that today's verdict brings some measure of comfort and closure to the victim.
And the stakes, they couldn't be higher, with Diddy's trial looming. Every move, every discovery, every twist in this case as another layer of tension. Federal prosecutors are doubling down, portraying him as a man who will stop at nothing to protect himself. Even if it means targeting those who might testify against him, they argue that the seized notes substantiate their claim, that releasing Diddy on bail would be far too dangerous. This is a man with unparalleled resources and influence. One prosecutor was quoted saying he's not just a flight risk, he's a risk to the integrity of this entire trial. Meanwhile, inside the walls of the Metropolitan Detention Center, the atmosphere is said to be electric with speculation. Inmates are talking, guards are whispering, and the tension is palpable for a man who...
Like there was probably a lot of hidden cameras as well. Is that what is being talked about?
Yes, this was actually in his Atlanta home, at a home he had in Atlanta at one point. And it does seem that the person isn't like looking into the video, so to me, doesn't seem like that person knows they're being videotaped. It doesn't seem like they're active participant in the videotape.
Adding fuel to the fire are reports of the appalling conditions at the detention center itself. The Metropolitan Detention Center is no spaghetti. It's a harsh, unforgiving environment that has been described by former inmates as a living nightmare. The cells are cramped, the food is barely edible, and the general atmosphere is one of relentless tension for someone like Diddy, whose life used to revolve around luxury and comfort. The adjustment has been extreme. Observers have noted that he appears visibly thinner and more aged in his recent court appearances, a stark contrast to the polished image he once maintained. And then there's the issue of safety. The Metropolitan Detention Center has a reputation for being one of the most volatile detention centers in the country. Violence among inmates is reportedly not uncommon, and the facility has faced scathing criticism for its lack of adequate staffing and oversight. Diddy's lawyers have argued that their client's high-profile status makes him a magnet for trouble. He's a target one. Them said everyone knows who he is, and that puts him in a uniquely vulnerable position. Recent reports have even suggested that Diddy has been refusing the prison's meals out of fear they might be tampered with, a claim that, while unverified, underscores just how dire his circumstances might.
Yeah, today it was the chance of R. Kelly's victims, many who have been, talking about this for years. I mean, this is allegations that have gone on for 3 decades, essentially, since he was a rising force and one of the most successful R&B stars.
The raid has also brought renewed attention to the broader conditions at the Metropolitan Detention Center. This isn't just a story about one man's fall from grace, it's a window into the grim realities of America's federal prison system over the years. The facility has been the subject of numerous exposés detailing everything from inadequate medical care to outright brutality. In one infamous incident, a power outage left inmates in darkness and freezing temperatures for days. Diddy's team has been quick to highlight these issues, arguing that keeping him in such conditions is not only inhumane, but also detrimental to his ability to prepare for trial. And then there's the question of motives. Why would federal authorities launch such a high-profile raid? Now, just months before the trial, some insiders believe it's a calculated move to keep Diddy on the defensive, forcing his legal team to fight battle on multiple fronts. Others speculate that the timing of the search might be linked to new developments. In the case, perhaps a new witness coming forward or a fresh lead that prompted investigators to dig deeper. Whatever the reason, one thing is clear: this case is only getting more complicated.
I mean, that fact in of itself is a big deal, because when you're talking about going back in time and talking about these allegations from other alleged victims, there's not a lot of police reports, but you guys actually have one. And is that going to be revealed? Are we going to be able to see it?
Yes, as soon as I file my lawsuit in civil court, I will be attaching.
As the drama unfolds, attention is also turning to the broader implications of what's at stake. Diddy's case has already sent shockwaves through the entertainment industry, with many wondering how far-reaching the fallout could be. Could this raid uncover links to other high-profile figures? Are there skeletons in the closet that have yet to be revealed? The seized notes, if they prove admissible in court, could potentially open a Pandora's box of allegations and connections that extend far beyond the money. At the center of the storm, for now, Diddy remains locked up, his world reduced to a small cell in a facility that's been described as hell on earth the man who once ruled the music charts and dominated red carpets, now faces a legal battle of epic proportions, with his freedom and possibly his legacy hanging in the balance, and as the public watches this saga unfold. One question looms large: is this the beginning of the end for a once untouchable icon, or will he find a way to reclaim...
possibly be true?
Still pretty early in the proceedings. I think it's only been about a month or a month and a half since he's been arraigned and held in detention. And so the investigations are always going to be a continuous and ongoing process. I'm sure at this point there's been an exchange of discovery. And not only that, but I think there's been a gag order placed on the attorneys with information that they can and cannot share. But
understand that he has a shrink coming by his cell to see him several times a day, and now there's talk about putting him in. It's like a bubble, it's like a cell that has like a plexiglass wall in it where they have inmates watching you. That's actually their job, to keep an eye on the inmates that are on watch. But
We're monitoring another push to free Sean Diddy Combs tonight, with his legal team citing new evidence in an updated bail proposal. The music mogul agreeing to around-the-clock security and cutting out contact with basically anyone but his legal team to get out of jail ahead of his trial scheduled for May of next year for charges he allegedly coerced and abused women for years.
let's not forget Diddy's own actions before his incarceration. Over the years, he's been accused of using his influence to manipulate situations in his favor. Some of his critics argue that this pattern of behavior is now working against him. They claim Diddy's perceived arrogance and history of pushing boundaries have created a long list of enemies, people who might now see his downfall as an opportunity to settle old scores. And with his legal troubles making headlines worldwide, the stakes for everyone involved have never been higher.
This new, quote, robust bail package, you can avoid and evade. And he is very connected with people that can help him avoid and evade. I'm not saying he will, but I would be surprised if the court grants him a bond. When the federal government wants you detained, you are normally detained, and here it was a very far-reaching situation that he was involved.
Understand that he has a shrink coming by his cell to see him several times a day, and now there's talk about putting him in. It's like a bubble, it's like a cell that has like a plexiglass wall in it where they have inmates watching you. That's actually their job, to keep an eye on the inmates that are on watch. But
world.
At the courthouse in Lower Manhattan, the judge ordering the prosecution to turn over its findings from a jail cell raid, Diddy's jail cell, just yesterday. What were the contents of those raids?
Well, apparently, according to the defense, they're legal documents. The government's saying no. On the contrary, they're just some handwritten notes and a calendar.
one of the most explosive claims comes from the notes allegedly discovered in his cell during the raid. While details remain murky, reports suggest these papers included names of individuals Diddy once trusted, people who might now be cooperating with prosecutors. What's more, these notes allegedly included handwritten plans that prosecutors are describing as disturbingly calculated, though Diddy's lawyers have vehemently denied these accusations, calling them pure fiction. The existence of such notes would undeniably complicate his case. The prosecution is using this discovery to bolster their argument that Diddy is a risk to witnesses and should remain behind bars until his trial, and these stakes go beyond the courtroom. Within the prison, Diddy's situation is anything but stable. The Metropolitan Detention Center, notorious for its harsh conditions, isn't exactly the safest environment for a high-profile inmate. Reports have already surfaced of tensions between Diddy and other prisoners, and with some claiming he's become a target, whether it's envy over His wealth and fame or...
That's it. If it is privilege, of course they won't. But if it really is what the prosecution says, that has nothing to do with the case, or even worse, it's actually evidence of witness tampering, because we all know the attorney-client privilege, there's a crime fraud exception. You can't use your lawyer to perpetuate a future or continuing fraud or crime. So if the documents are what the government says they are, they're going to get them again.
This is video of Diddy's family arriving to court for last Friday's hearing. Prosecutors arguing that he misused prison systems in an attempt to tamper with potential witnesses. And they say they have proof Diddy used other inmates' phone cards or used three-way calls with friends to contact associates that prosecutors...
One of the most explosive claims comes from the notes allegedly discovered in his cell during the raid. While details remain murky, reports suggest these papers included names of individuals Diddy once trusted, people who might now be cooperating with prosecutors. What's more, these notes allegedly included handwritten plans that prosecutors are describing as disturbingly calculated, though Diddy's lawyers have vehemently denied these accusations, calling them pure fiction. The existence of such notes would undeniably complicate his case. The prosecution is using this discovery to bolster their argument that Diddy is a risk to witnesses and should remain behind bars until his trial, and these stakes go beyond the courtroom within the prison. Diddy's situation is...
Case have until today to give answers for how the music mogul has been communicating from jail. Combs appearing in court last Friday seeking bail while he awaits trial. He's been held at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn since September.